Good evening and welcome to the 46th Mill Valley Film Festival. We're so happy you're here. We are thrilled to be showing Priscilla tonight, and it's an extraordinary tale, very different from maybe what you have seen in the past. And we're delighted because we have a special guest coming with us tonight as well. I'd like to thank, before we go any further, our sponsor for this evening, the Destino Fund, for making this all possible. So thank you to our friends there.
And we'd also like to thank our friends at Coppola Winery. The name may be familiar to you.
I want to thank everybody. I know you can see that code for giving to our resiliency campaign. That's going on from now to the end of the year. I thank you for those of you who are members and those of you who have renewed and those of you who are thinking about it. And this is in great part what makes the California Film Institute operate. So thank you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart.
And I bet you're ready to see Priscilla. Yes, okay, good. Yeah, put together Sofia Coppola with the story of Priscilla Presley, and you know that you're in for a real treat. The treat will be continued after the screening when Sofia will be here to be in conversation with Isabel Duffy Pinner, and so stay around. And I think let's get it rolling. Thank you.
Well, this is the really fun part of the show because when it comes to honoring talent, Mill Valley Film Festival is just so happy to have these artists with us at our event. And Sofia Coppola, since Virgin Suicides, has made it extraordinary films. Lost in Translation, she was the third woman to be nominated for Best Director in the history of the Academy Awards. Yes. Her sensitive portrayal of so many different genres and stories is a testament to her amazing creativity. We cannot be more happy to have her as our honoree for Spotlight for directing.
And you've just seen a fabulous example of her work. For me, I love the way that the choices that she makes, the way that she frames things, the eyes that we see through when we see through her eyes. And I love the way that she uses music. And I think we should invite her up here to receive the Mill Valley Film Festival Award. Please welcome Sofia Coppola.
Thank you. Am I on?
You're on.
Thank you so much. This is it's such an honor for me, such a treat. I really appreciate your giving me this, and I'm so thankful to be a part of the festival in my home area of Northern California. I'm proud. Yes. Yes, and I'm just so thankful for my great teams that I work with on this film and all of my films. It's it's such a collaborative work, so I'm so grateful to have such a great team and great cinematographers and costume designers, and I'm thankful to my parents for always bringing me to film sets, so I learned how to do this. So thank you very much for having me, and thank you for this.
Well, it's an immense pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we're going to invite Isabel Duffy Pinner to come up, and we'll be in conversation with you. This is by Alice Corning. She's a Mill Valley sculptor, and I just saw her in the house just now. So
it's
they're
so
all
beautiful.
Hopefully
individually
she's
made
here
and numbered.
to hear that.
It's so beautiful. I'm very excited to bring this home tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let's get you seated.
Okay.
Thank you, Isabel.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sophia.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let me get rid of this. Thank you.
Hi. We've been talking about teenage girls.
Yes.
Got to put my old lady glasses on. Welcome. Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing your film with us. I think really the best place to begin is always at the beginning. So could you talk a little bit about what drew you to Priscilla's story?
Yeah, I had a paperback of Priscilla Presley's memoir called Elvis and Me, and I was kind of just reading it for fun, and I was really surprised when I didn't know that much about really what her experience was like, and I was so surprised to learn that she was going to high school when she was living at Graceland, and then I was really surprised to be so moved by her story, because she talks about these details and really paints a picture of what it was like emotionally for her, and just being like when she was in school, not being able to have friends over, and I just thought it was a really moving story, and I was surprised with how relatable it was, because I didn't think I have anything in common with Priscilla Presley, but just that she went through all these phases and transitions that all girls go through to womanhood, of your first love and having a baby or being the new kid at school. They were just the way she talked about these moments in life. I thought it was really interesting to be able to relate to her story, but in such a incredibly unique setting that I never thought I would have anything in common with. So there's something really universal I felt in her story, and I thought it was really moving, and I was really impressed that she was able to leave Graceland and find a life of her own outside of that, especially at that time. And I think it was, a huge deal for a woman to get divorced from such a powerful man at a time where she didn't have an income, in the early 70s. And so I was just really kind of impressed by her story, and I thought, that it could be. I thought about making it a film because it's so visual, and I love that world. But really, I was really struck by her story.
It was a very courageous thing for her to do, to write that book in the first place, wasn't it? There's a kind of cone of silence around being connected to fame and celebrity.
Yeah, I was surprised because the book came out, I should know what year, in the 80s, but nobody seems to know what her experience was. It's like it was, when it came out, it was a different time and was looked at differently, and then I think some people were surprised that, like, how could you reveal these things? And I thought, well, it's been out for years in her book, but I was, I thought it was really courageous that she, really went into detail about what it was like, and didn't smooth over it. She was pretty honest, and even now when I talk to her about her story, she, recalls these details that make it so, that you can connect to it.
Tell us what it was like working with her.
Yeah, it was so cool. It was the first time I ever worked on something where the subject was alive, and I could call them up and ask them, what were you thinking here? And it was so interesting. I felt a lot of pressure I wanted to make a film that she, that respected her story and that she felt good about. So it's the first time I've had to think about kind of pleasing someone else besides myself. So I was torn between, what I wanted to express, but then also wanting to be considerate of how she wanted her story told and what felt honest. But it was a little bit of a balancing act of how she wanted her story. And she thinks about it differently now than when she wrote the book, even. Like, when she talks about things, sometimes there's a different, it's pretty much the same, but she sometimes has a different perspective a little bit. So just kind of balancing that, and it was important to me that she felt like it was an accurate portrayal of her life. And when she saw it all finished, and she said, "That was my life. I just saw my life," and I was, it was so moving, because it meant a lot to me that we got it right. And I was, kind of guessing from her descriptions really give you a good idea. I thought it was clear, but but it's always your interpretation. So I was, happy and relieved that she felt like it was close to her story. And also we had to, you have to change things when you adapt something. We had to combine things, and kind of some things that took place in LA, we moved to Graceland, and just kind of the logistics of making a movie. So, but she could look past that, and the essence of what was going on was true to her. But it was really interesting to get to talk to her, and just as I would read the book, I would make notes and questions, and then to be able to ask her, and try not to pry, because it's so personal, her story, but wanting to, know what was really going on. I remember asking her, like, what were you doing all the time when he was away and you're just there in Graceland? Like, what were you doing? because she was so limited to what she could do, and so that I had to kind of imagine. And she said, I took some classes at a charm school, and like, learning table settings and these kind of like, how to be a wife. And so it was just interesting to hear kind of what the day-to-day of that experience was like. And then when she left and moved to LA, she told me that she started to have friends through taking dance classes and starting to have people that she had that had conversations with, and they had things in common. And she said she didn't really know her taste until she had to, find it on her own. So it was really a moving experience getting to talk to her about this.
So, that performance by Kaylee Spaney is just extraordinary. I wondered if you could talk a little bit about casting her, how you found her, and how she became Priscilla. I mean, to play the part from 14 to 27-ish, whatever, when she leaves him, it's just phenomenal.
Yeah, I was so impressed by her because it was really important to me that we have the same actress player, from 14 to late 20s. And I was like, who are we going to find that can do that? And then I met her, and she has such a baby face that she's really 25 in real life. So I thought, you could totally believe that she is a kid. But I was really impressed. We were shooting all out of order. And so in the morning she'd be, a 15-year-old, and then after lunch she'd put her wigs on and she'd be pregnant. And like, she was like all over the place. And I was so impressed that she somehow was charting it, because when you see the movie, you're like, oh wow, she was really creating that transition. And that's just really her great work, and being able to keep track of that. And even the way she changed her voice quality and body language to really be a kid and then to grow up. I was really impressed by her. It's I think so much of it is just casting, like finding someone that you think gets what you're talking about and then letting them do their thing.
But she's so young. I mean, what would she? It's such a kind of.
Yeah, I remember like when she talked about having the baby, because I have 2 kids, I would like show her how to hold it, or like things like that. Try to give her some insight of what that experience was like, and how, how it might be. And the scene where which is in the book, when, or I don't remember but when she first has a young baby, and the bus drives away, and all the guys are going off to work and have fun and make stuff, and she's like supposed to be stuck at home with the baby. And I don't know, I found that so relatable, because I even felt like that. I mean, I wasn't in that situation, but there was a moment where you're like, okay, you're supposed to now just totally change what you're doing and be fulfilled with being at home with the baby. And so I thought all these kind of moments were really striking. But now I'm going off on a tangent. But I tried to fill her into what I thought from talking to Priscilla, and then from my own experience of what kind of those moments might be like. And she spoke with Priscilla, and so she got to speak to Priscilla, and then then I think actress always has to make it their own and connect to it personally. But we shot this in 30 days. It was such a scramble of like wigs and running around, and it was really like held together with Scotch tape. So it doesn't look. I'm happy it doesn't look like that, but it was all blur. So I'm happy that somehow the illusion comes through, and that and she did such a good job, I think, of going from such a young age and making it true to her.
There's no way you would think this film was made in 30 days, just none. I did read something interesting earlier about the budget, and how when Elvis comes into the room, the budget went through the roof, because suddenly he was, he had to have his entourage, he had to knock down a building there, something expensive had to happen.
Right.
So when you've just got Priscilla on her own kind of wafting around Graceland.
Yeah, but we did, we had to cut a lot of things out just to be able to do it. And but that scene with the bulldozer, the producers kept trying to get me to take that out because it's expensive. And I was like, but we have to have that. It's like this, she's not dating anyone. Like, part of it is showing what that was like being with him, and how great, over the top it all was.
So I was reading through my notes, which kind of scribbled in the dark at the screening, and one of the first things I wrote was every frame is a work of art. And this really is a kind of, I mean, it's a very Sofia Coppola film. It's a very visually beautiful film. I wondered if you could speak a little bit about the art direction and the costumes and kind of all that wonderful kind of sumptuous, sexy color.
Oh, thank you. I mean, that's the part that's fun about filmmaking. And I studied photography, and I love photography, so I think of each frame, you know, what it looks like. And working with the cinematographer Philippe Lassorde is really my partner. And this I was really excited about, Graceland in the 60s and rebuilding Graceland. We built it all on stages. And then Tamara Deverell, the production designer, her team did an amazing job. We had a lot of fun with picking out shag carpet and drapes and all of that. And to see them like build the gates at Graceland, so it was really fun. And then Stacey Patat, the costume designer, her team did a great job. They made a lot of those costumes, and every time they came to set, the actors, I was always excited to see what they were in those colors, and because nobody wears those colors anymore, and we got really into just kind of going for it with that whole world of tchotchkes and all their outfits, and because they had such style, it was fun to they really dressed up all the time, so it was fun to get to do that.
Amazing details. I mean, things like, did she really put her false lashes on when she was in labor, and
that's in the book,
and match her gun to her dress?
Yeah, that's all in the book. Those are some favorite parts of the book that I love.
I'm going to start doing that.
Yeah,
no,
it was really. Yeah, she talked about when she was at school talking to the nun, and how could she explain to the nun that at night she was picking out which pistol to go with which glittery dress. And I thought, like, how do we show that? And so, I love all those details. And she really was putting on her lashes to go to the hospital, have her baby. So it's that era, I guess.
Incredible.
But I love the glamour commitment.
Full on glamour. Let's talk about the music, because the soundtrack is beautiful. You end with a beautiful song. We should talk about that a little bit. But there's no Elvis Presley.
Yeah, I always knew that we might not be able to get permission, and we did not get permission. So, but I always wanted to find a way. It was a challenge to figure out how to do the music of that era, but still feel like connected to what I like and my kind of filmmaking. And so it was. So I worked with my husband's band Phoenix, and we listened to a lot of music and started putting together these playlists of what we liked from that era, and it sort of started to take shape. And then we had a few Elvis songs, but then we didn't get permission from the estate, and so then we had to work around that. And I thought it was kind of cool to have a movie about Priscilla without any Elvis music, and
a lot of female vocalists.
Yeah, and it was important. I thought that I was really glad we got to have Dolly Parton at the end, because I felt like it should have a woman's voice at the end, and now she's kind of going into her own. But I would have liked to. I mean, of course, there's Elvis songs that I love, and I would have liked to have had. But it was a creative challenge to kind of give the essence of his story, and to find music that felt like that era. But we also used stuff from other eras. But they all kind of are related to kind of a Phil Spector sound of that kind of big string production, and kind of embracing a little bit of melodrama, I think, or just heightened romance.
So I guess I have to address the elephant in the room, which is the age difference, and how I think you tackled that so sensitively, and I wondered whether that was partly in collaboration with Priscilla. But as we were talking earlier about being mothers of teenage girls, I was thinking to myself, how would I feel if Harry Styles appeared, or even Jacob Elordi?
I know. My daughter was visiting set and like bugging me to take her picture with Jacob, and so I can imagine she would be happy to run off. But no, it was, it was interesting because being a mother of teenage girls, I could relate to Priscilla's parents as I was making the film. The kids come and you don't want to, they want to do whatever they want to do, and you want to go along with it. But so it was interesting. It was the first time I was in the position of I could relate to the teenage character and the parents, and so I was trying to approach each character with sensitivity and humanity, and all of them. I never wanted anyone to be a villain, and although the story is I'm always going back to Priscilla's point of view, and I'm always thinking I want to tell it from her point of view. I did try to always have, you know, sensitivity to the other characters as human characters that were going through their own struggles. And yeah, thankfully Kaylee was the same age as Jacob, but it was still, when we were shooting that scene when he first kisses her, it was really, it was really hard to not make it. I didn't want it to feel creepy because we're in her point of view, so it should feel romantic, but then you don't want to be, you know, making it condoning it too much. It was a balance, but I just kept coming back to Priscilla's point of view, and we're telling her story, and I'm not gonna try to not put judgment on it, and just always go back to what was her experience like, and that I felt like that was my task in this film.
I think you handled that really sensitively. I think also Kaylee's face in those moments afterward, just those tiny, tiny gestures, she's so subtle. Yeah. And those close-ups you do of her, and I could feel like hair on my arm stand up. It's like I remember feeling like that after that first kiss, or that, you know, that moment.
Oh, I'm so glad, because one of my favorite moments is when after he first kisses her, she's walking down the hall with Crimson and Clover, and she has this kind of strut of remembering her, you know. And I thought, imagine if your first kiss was Elvis Presley. It's so, like, how do we convey the epicness of that? So yeah, I think she does such a good job. I was impressed when we were filming. She would just, like, some little small detail in her face would change, and she would convey. And I would say something to her, like, give her some direction, and she was like, oh yeah, okay, I got it. And then she would, like, do something very subtle with her face, and it was a totally different feeling. So I guess it's just her talent, but she's able to express emotion with very subtle facial expressions. I don't know how she does that, but yeah, I always love a goosebumps moment.
Goosebumps moment. I think we've probably got time for a couple of questions from the audience. Should we do that? Is anyone? I can't see anyone. Anyone got a question for Sofia? Over there in the red dress. Did you hear the question? Okay, the question was, could Sofia please talk a little bit about growing up in the Bay Area as a teenager herself, and what she might have brought from that experience to her movies?
Thank you. I feel like that time, I just remember everything being epic and important, and a lot of feeling, and driving around and listening to music a lot. I grew up in St. Helena, and so I just remember spending a lot of time driving around and listening, blasting music, and how important music was at that time, and everything. I don't know, just your feelings are more, your senses are more heightened or something. So I don't know why I'm always interested in that period, but I think I started making films because when I read the book of Virgin Suicides, I wanted to make it into a film, and I felt like I didn't see a lot of films with teenage girls that felt relatable or beautiful. A lot of them were corny, or the actors were in their 30s, and so that was something I just cared about. I just felt like teenage girls deserve to have something beautiful and poetic, because they would appreciate it, because you're sensitive at that age. Or I don't know. I don't know why I have this connection to that, and I never thought I would just keep doing it, but I do have a connection to that age, and but I always think I probably have to grow up and do the things about other. But I don't know. I'm connected to that stage, so I can't think of a particular story. But I went to high school in St. Helena, and I think I spent a lot of time, like, sitting around my room. You have time to, like, just think, and you know, we talked on the phone, and you know, took photos and decorate your walls in your room and all that kind of stuff. So I always. I feel like when you're creative, you always want to get back to that stage of in your bedroom as a high schooler. Sure. And I remember that. I love that when you're in your room, you're alone, but, like, you can hear your family downstairs. Like, there's people around, but you're on your own. Mm-hmm.
I think teenagers get a bad rep. I love teenagers. They're great. Any other questions? Yes, over there. What did Priscilla think of Jacob's performance?
Yeah, we screened the film in Venice a month ago or something, and it was the first time she saw it with all the sound finished, and she said to me, she was so impressed. She had seen, like, a rough version, but I don't think it hit her until she saw it all finished, and she said, "Oh, it was his voice. His voice reminded me so much of him," and he reminded her of Elvis, but especially his voice. So I know Jacob was so happy because he really, really, it was such a daunting job and wanted to do a good job. So I was so happy that she felt that way, because no one looks like Elvis. But we tried to focus on his the kind of the feeling of him, the essence, the way he moved, and I thought Jacob is so charismatic and has that kind of magnetism that I imagine Elvis must have had, and that charm, and he's so lovable. And then we went to our opening, and all these girls were like crying and screaming, and I thought, like, he's got, he's the closest to that kind of excitement, I think.
Yeah, over there. That's a great question. How do you get all that emotion into such a short shoot with such constraints?
Yeah, I think. Thank you. I love movies when you just get lost in another world, and so that's what I try to do. And I think it's just movie magic. At one point, it starts to come together, but really, when the sound and the picture all come together, then just like some magic happens, and you can get lost in that world. But when you're working on your editing, and it doesn't feel like a movie. It feels, but at a certain point, you just have. I don't know. I try to be intuitive and just kind of go with the feeling of it, and then I think it's not until like the final color and the sound and everything comes together that it sort of magically turns into a movie. But I'm not sure how that happens. But it's a lot of different departments all working together, and everybody doing their part with the costumes and the light and everything, and and kind of creating the illusion, which is the magic of movies.
I think we've got time for maybe one or
But
two more.
I do want to see, for anyone making movies, that it doesn't feel like that until the very end. So you just have to have blind faith, because the whole time it feels awkward, and it doesn't feel like it's going to all come together. And only because I've done it a few times now, I know like it's going to come together at the end. Hopefully, you never really know. But it's just good to remember that most of the way it doesn't feel like that until at the end it starts to like all gel.
Yeah, over there. Were there any pros or cons to telling a story, to telling Priscilla's story in a linear way?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the biggest challenge was having to edit it down, because it's such a big life, and to make it into 90 minutes or whatever. So it was just a lot of editing, and I thought I wanted to tell the story around Graceland, like her arriving at Graceland and her leaving Graceland. I wanted to tell the story of Priscilla at Graceland. But I knew I had to tell a little bit of Germany before, of how she met him. But to me, the story is really about her in Graceland and then leaving Graceland. And I think it's just going through the book and deciding what parts to keep, and having to lose parts to edit it down, and combine some things and characters. And so I'm trying to think. And I thought one time about like I tried a little, at one point I thought in the script to have narration, because I liked certain things she said that explained things, but then I felt like that takes you out of it, and I hope the audience would be living her story along with her, and not at a distance. So choices like that, I guess, were challenging to figure out kind of how to tell the story. But as far as linear, I never thought about telling it out of order, because it felt so much like a progression of watching her grow up and living her life with her and growing up with her to the point where she kind of grew up and became a woman and left to find her own way. I hope that answers. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think that's a great place to end. Unfortunately, that's the end of our time. I know.
It was nice talking to you. This is my first Q&A, so I didn't really know what I was talking about. So I'm figuring it out as we go. I mean, for this movie. So thank you.